Yes, yes. Welcome back. Let's make it juicy with this topic today. And he's AKA Mama G, co-creator, as I always say, along with the prime creator of Fiercely Fulfilled Feminine, where I help star seeds to heal sexual trauma, reclaim their power, and experience true fulfillment through what I call the sacred sexuality reclamation method. And I just released a video on that method. I break it down for you. So if you'd like to check that out, I'm going to include that link in the description below. So today, I would like to come back around to talk specifically about the sex addict and the love addict. And I'm going to compare those and show you that they are essentially two different sides of the same coin. Two different sides of the same coin, and why we can choose to not shame ourselves and no longer, and not shame others if this is how it's showing up. And I am going to bring twin flames into it because there are different polarities, extremities, the landscapers out there, different extremes of either repressed or overexpressed sexuality. Now, I know I've talked about this before, but I'm just going to break it down a little bit differently today. This is what how I'm guided to come in today. So I entitled this Sex, Love, Addiction, and Twin Flames and Divine Opportunity. Because if you think about it, it's the most beautifully, divinely orchestrated plan. I know it's painful, you got to go through it, but yet you chose this. You chose this as a way to become spiritually awakened with the other self that showed up, same soul. Wow. You cannot deny the connection. Okay. So I'm going to talk about what sex does. Okay. I'm also going to talk about, somebody may come on here, not be a twin flame and say, hold up, wait a minute. And by the way, this video can still be for you because sex addiction, love addiction exists in so many different types of relationships, and they are trauma responses. Okay. So this applies, unfortunately, to a lot of people. So as far as twin flames, however, I feel like I would like to share that, yes, it is a trauma bond. However, it is an opportunity to dismantle trauma bonding and to break that ancestral pattern and to come back into wholeness within oneself and to realign with with one's divinity, the remembrance of such and the remembrance of oneness. They call that inner unions, inner sacred union. And that's the beauty of the journey. And if you haven't been on it long enough, or if it's still really painful and a struggle, stay with me because it doesn't have to stay that way. It does get easier. I am not yet in physical reunion. However, I feel that connection and it's beautiful. I've healed so much. So that's why I'm here sharing. So, like I said, I'm going to break that down, talk a little bit about, and then enlightenment to embodiment, embodiment to enlightenment, and bringing heaven to earth, earth to heaven, bring it all together, the infinite to the finite, the divine masculine, divine feminine. Okay, some of you may not like labels, yet they provide a framework. They provide a framework. So let's just okay, let's be okay or not okay, but I'm going to use those labels. So, first of all, if it is a twin flame, you are going to experience a rush of chemicals, hormones, neurotransmitters, and it is going to feel somewhat like a trauma bond, a chemical romance, except there's a difference. And here are the differences, and I feel like I need to share this right now. So just stay with me. Number one, there's soul recognition. You look into each other's eyes. There's just something different. You can't quite, it's so different than any experience that you ever had in your life up until this point. And you're just like, I can't explain this. What is this? You actually feel, for me personally, it was like, even though it didn't necessarily last, it was like this just beautiful unconditional love just enveloped me. And it was like it was surrounding both of us. And I just felt this deep, deep unconditional love for this person. And it was full chakra. It didn't come just from the sacral. It wasn't just lust. It was like, wow. What is this? So there's a soul recognition. It's that feeling of oneness and deep unconditional love, no matter how long it lasts. That is how you know it's twin flame. And yeah. Okay, so sex. Well, I'm trying to figure out which order I'd like to do this in. Let me talk about this. So first of all, sex is a beautiful thing. Sex releases a whole bunch of hormones. It feels good for a reason because it's a powerful energy that when we understand the power of it, how to properly access, harness it, and expand it to our benefit, it's a beautiful thing. And it's a reason why there's a reason why it releases all these beautiful hormones. So you've got the endorphins, which are painkillers. Okay. If you don't want to feel physical pain or especially emotional pain, there's your endorphins. Okay. Whether you're conscious of it or not. There's a dopamine, which is a big one because that's a feel good hormone. That is a type of hormone that could become very, in other words, typically when there are addictive behaviors, it is the dopamine is the number one hormone, at least in my insight at this point, that is released. And that's that feel good. Obviously the serotonin as well, which is just very calming and very relaxing and even oxytocin, which is known as the bonding hormone. That's the hormone, like when you're pregnant and typically when you give birth to a baby, you just feel this deep, deep, unconditional love, at least in most instances, not always, because there's something known as postpartum depression. I'm not going to tackle that today. However, oxytocin is why mothers in particular, even more than fathers too, especially mothers, because they've birthed the child, they just feel this deep, deep unconditional love. And then when a mother chooses to breastfeed, that oxytocin is released through the breast milk. So the baby feels that bond, feels the bonding, the mother feels the bonding, a very, very powerful chemical. And yes, it is released. It's released when you hug, it's released when you have sex, when you are connecting, more than just a fleeting passing by, there is that oxytocin, which is released. And it feels wonderful because you feel connected, because everyone craves connection, because that says, okay, I mean something. It means, okay, you're worthy. If I'm connecting, okay, I must mean something. There must be something bigger. I'm connecting to the divine, to God, to the source of creation. So connection is really, really important. So that's why I spent a little time on the oxytocin there. However, that can be short-lived without any true intimacy. So let's get to this. And why I believe it's such a divine, beautiful opportunity to really grow beyond the echoes of trauma that show up as both sex addiction and love addiction. Okay, so let's look at it. But first of all, you're looking at extreme polarities. Now, for me, I'm just going to speak briefly to my own twin flame journey. Is I'm going to be honest and I'm going to be very vulnerable. I'm always vulnerable. You see all the different ways I share. I share like when I got myself in trouble because I was really seeking my own dopamine hit. I was this. Yet it got to a point where I was like, I'm done. Like I feel like I've been rejected, abandoned so many times. It's just not working out. I didn't even want to touch myself anymore because my sexual energy had become depleted. And that's something that I talk about in my courses, how that happens and why it happens and how you can actually get it back. I wasn't even touching myself. I'm like, why even bother? I don't care. Sex is just, why bother? When I meet the right person, okay, then we can start up again because I would identify as the love addict. Like I said, I'm about to get to that in a moment. So completely repressed. And then I meet a twin flame who's the complete opposite. Okay, that's where the sex addict comes in. Okay, and I'm not saying this to shame me, this person, or anybody. I'm just calling it for what it is. Calling it for what it is. The beauty is it pulls when you have this deep, deep connection with the twin flame, which is literally your own soul. You're just in two different bodies. So This person is you, and you are this person. That's why there's such a strong pull and you feel such a deep connection. And the beauty of the divine plan is because it's the same soul, because you're the same soul, there's that connection remains. It can't ever go away. And that pulls and it creates deep, deep transformative growth. And so the idea is that you eventually come into balance and you harmonize. You harmonize your sexual energy. You harmonize everything. So it takes two opposite expressions of trauma, especially around sexual trauma, and it brings them into balance. And that's what sacred sexuality is, what it's all about. And that's what brought me back. And so I have my twin flame, my other self, to thank for that. And I would imagine that my twin flame is also coming into the awareness, or has come into the awareness of the sacredness of sex and awareness of how her journey has unfolded related to her trauma in the same way that I did. Okay. Trust me, if you are growing and you're coming into this awareness, so is your twin flame, so is your divine counterpart, even if you don't visibly see it in the 3D. When and if you're meant to see it, don't go looking. Like I just said, I'm done. I don't need to know. I didn't go looking. It just boop, popped up. Trust me, God, the divine, is going to come in and let you know when you need to know. You don't need to go looking. You don't need to go looking. Just focus on you. I'm talking specifically to the divine feminines, okay? With that predominant energy before it balances out. So it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. Well, this is how we break that ancestral trauma bond. This is how you are able to reclaim your true power, which is in the free flow of your sexual energy, which is the creative force of the energy that I share again and again and again. It brings you back to life, brings you back online. Because trust me, both the sex addict and the love addict reach a point of complete depletion, exhaustion, overwhelm, depression. I'm done. What is this? What is life about? Like, I'm not happy. And I know this because I have spoken to sex addicts. I've spoken to sex addicts at the beginning of their recovery, a few years into the recovery. So I do know a little bit about sex addiction and how that can present itself. And I've also done a ton of research. So how the divine works. Let's look at this. So the sex addict, first of all, both the sex addict and the love addict have a fear of intimacy. And that has to do with trauma. However, whatever that trauma might have been, chances are, if you're here with me now, it's been sexual trauma, body shaming, whatever it might have been, an indirect sexual trauma, some kind of addiction, okay? For me, it was sexual trauma. And so you want it, you crave the connection, you crave the intimacy, but there's some part of you that fears it. You're afraid of it because you've associated connection and intimacy with pain. And again, that's the trauma. So the sex addict will objectify. In other words, they look at another man or a woman or another person as okay, or there's someone I want to have sex with. So they're always like, okay, where's my next sexual encounter coming from? So they're always looking for that next encounter. That's their focus. It's not about a relationship. It's not about true connection. Definitely not about intimacy. It's a connection just long enough to get that hit. So it's not even really about the sex. It's the feel good. Okay. It's desire to connect. And that oxytocin is still released, but it's short-lived. And that's why they go back again and again and again, and they continue. And the challenge is the dopamine reaches a heightened level as a baseline. So they need more and more sex. It's never enough. Or they need more thrills or more different types of sex, more challenges, more risky sex, because that gets them the high that they desire without really realizing initially why that is. And yet the love addict, let's go over to the love addict now, also in a way objectifies, because the love addict also fears intimacy. So they're, the love, if I can speak to me, I was so focused on my physical appearance. Like, it was like I spent hours on my hair. I had my nails a different color every day. I would just, you know, what am I going to wear? It was just so hyper focused on my physical appearance to a fault. And so, and then I would say for me and for others who have experienced love addiction or recovering love addicts, if you want to be truly honest, and these tend to be the divine feminines in the twin flame path, is you've probably criticized your partner or your lover in some small ways, like maybe you wish they dressed a certain way or whatever. That's objectification. Did I say that right? Objectify. Same thing. It's just not as obvious. You see what I'm saying? Okay. For the sex addict, it's a fear rejection. For the love addict, it's a fear of abandonment. Two sides of the same coin. Like the sex addict might have been like, I'm just not good enough. I'm not worthy. Like I can't do enough. Like what more do I need to do to be loved? Because we all desire to love and be loved. What more can I do to be loved? Maybe it's neglect. Maybe they're the ones that had to take care of the siblings. Well, the mother was doing drugs or the dad was nowhere to be seen. It's just like, okay, kind of like, well, you don't really matter. I got to take care of my needs. So you're kind of left to just take care of everything. So you feel rejected. And so you fear rejection when you try to connect. Whereas again, the love addict is a fear of abandonment. Maybe people just left their lives, or something happened at some point in their journey where just maybe a sudden death or a lot of different ways that can show up. And the sex addict and the love addict both fear intimacy. They both fear true intimacy because it means they have to be vulnerable. They have to really show their wounds. They have to really show who they really are. And here's the thing, there's a lot of shame for both the sex addict and the love addict, because you look at your trauma and you're like, oh my God, like this is how I act. Like once you start to become aware, you're like, even when you're not aware, you still feel ashamed because on some level you could be a better person. And yet wherever you are on your path, you're good to go where you are. The key is just to keep going on where you are. Don't shame yourself. Accept yourself, whether others want to accept you or not. You take care of you. You increase that self-love. You dig into where that unworthiness came about, the root, and you keep going and you keep working on it. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you're a divine feminine, your divine masculine loves you. If you're a divine masculine, your divine feminine loves you. Despite it all, both of you really deeply love each other. Except you also know that only certain, you increase your standards. And that's why sacred preparation happens. Okay. For the sex addict, sex is very lustful. It's very lower chakra, 3D. It's all about the rush, connect long enough to, like I said, just get that oxytocin and without any real intimacy, because then they can feel the connection, yet they're safe. So they're avoiding the intimacy, yet they're still getting that connection. The problem is, like I said, when it's a in and bang and out onto the next, it's short-lived. And that can actually create a feeling or a sense of greater and greater disconnection over time, disassociation with one's body, and depression and lack of fulfillment and feeling completely depleted energetically. Okay. Love addict tends to be very dramatic. Like the emotions, oh, wait a minute, hold on. Let me make sure I line this up here. Okay, sex. Sex is lustful too, honestly, for the love addict, yet at the same time, the love addict, without realizing, because this was me, is clinging on. And you see how I'm talking specifically about where you have a sex addict and a love addict coming together in trauma bonding. There are different degrees that you might not be someone who's labeled as a sex addict, yet they might be a cheater and their focus might be on, you know, just going and having sex with a bunch of different people. I'm not going to get into attachment styles right now. I'm not going to talk about falsely empowered versus disempowered. I have other videos about that. So if you want to check my playlist, you can do that. I'm really focusing specifically, like I said, on the sex addict and the love addict. So lustful. And the love addict, honestly, it's lustful too. Although the love addict does want to connect, and that's about safety. So let me back up. It's about safety for both of them. So if the sex addict is like, I just want to go in, I want to get that little quick connection, I want to feel good, get those endorphins to kill the pain, the emotional pain, whatever it is, so I'm not feeling it. I want to get a little bit of connection, release, and then back up because they're avoiding empathy, and that's about safety and feeling like they're in control. Whereas the love addict is the same thing. They are looking for their safety in this other person. And they feel safe with one person and having sex with one person. And yet they're clingy. Their emotions are not regulated. So it can be overwhelming for someone who might be the sex addict. And you could replace this with divine masculine, divine feminine, and some of the attachment styles. I'm doing my best just to focus on the topic for today. So, and looking for external validation. Both are looking for external validation. The sex for a sex addict is very performance driven. And in the love addict, this was never me. I never faked orgasm. Trust me. I think I never faked orgasm. But there are women who fake orgasms, sacrificing their own pleasure and needs to please the partner. Okay. So, and I'm kind of I trying to stay focused on the topic, yet that is manipulative. So both can be manipulative, coercive, and seductive in a way that is disempowering, that is not aligned with integrity, because there is some such thing as sacred seduction. Yet because of trauma, it shows up in an inverted way on both sides. So both the sex addict is self-serving, selfish, and not in a healthy way. The love addict is also self-serving and selfish and not in a healthy way. Except what happens is it's really easy to stigmatize the sex addict, to shame the sex addict because of the way it shows up. Whereas with the love addict, it's not as readily visible, it's not as readily seen, so there's less stigma, there's less shame, and yet it's all real. So I say it again and again, the only way we don't heal through shame. We heal through love and compassion. And it starts with ourselves. It starts with ourselves. And so I am going to remind divine feminines on this path in particular is stop bashing and complaining about your divine masculine if they haven't treated you well, if they're exhibiting behaviors that are hurtful. Stop bashing them. Step back, do some self-reflection, reevaluation, and say, okay, where do I need to establish some boundaries here? What can I do at this point to continue to heal and transform, transmute my own trauma in the way that it has shown up? My self-love, my self-compassion, honoring my needs, being patient, and knowing that this is a process, giving the DM space, but also you space. Because what happens often is the divine masculine, who tends to be the dismissive avoidant type or the sex addict, you see, I'm kind of needs space. So do you. Divine feminine needs space. It's just because of your fear of abandonment, you're afraid to take that space. You're afraid to allow the counterpart, the divine masculine, to take that space. And yet you will get to a point like I did where you're like, okay, I'm safe. You regulate the nervous system and you say, okay, this person loves me. It's okay. Not even the divine masculine. You're going to find a lot of people in your life who really showed up and loved you and you cared for them and you felt that mutual like care and love and appreciation, and it starts to change or they just move away from your experience, and then and others will come back in and you're like, okay, you get to a point where you realize it doesn't matter who's showing up and who's not. I I know who I am. I'm a child of God. I'm a child of the one infinite creator. It's knowing that and then experiencing and embodying that. So the beauty of the polarities with the sex addict and the love addict, okay, yes, you're harmonizing, you're coming into your sacred sexuality. It's what's happening is, so you have the divine feminine that really focuses on the upper chakras, enlightenment. So she leaves behind all those lower chakra pleasures she's meant to, so it's all good, okay? So she's up here. Meanwhile, the divine masculine, because they need to anchor in the enlightenment that's happening with the divine feminine, okay? So they're like the anchor, remains in the muck, so to speak, in the matrix type of behaviors, the addictive type of behaviors. They look for power, more money, like, and lust and sex and maybe overeating or drugs, alcohol, whatever it is. That's the role of the divine masculine. It's okay. So eventually what happens at some point is the divine feminine needs to come back down and embody her enlightenment, bring heaven to earth. And that's what the divine masculine helps her to do. On the other side of it, the divine masculine is now experiencing that divine feminine coming back, and she's been enlightened. She's coming back into embodiment. Now the divine masculine is rising and now becoming more and more, increasingly more enlightened. And now they're having their spiritual awakening. So now they're able to balance their lower and upper chakras. They're just doing it from opposite extremes, and it has to happen that way. It has to. If you understand science and spirituality and quantum physics and the way matrices work and whatnot, that's the way it has to happen. It's beautifully, divinely orchestrated. It's amazing, the divine intelligence that thought of this. So it really is a truly beautiful thing. Those polarities are what magnetize and draw each other in. Without polarity, it's not going to happen. In fact, when you are with a partner and hopefully eventually within physical reunion with your divine counterpart, you're going to have a dominant, either feminine or masculine energy, and you want to have those polarities so that you maintain enough of a magnetic attraction to keep it all good. Okay, it's going to be more balanced, not as extreme like as this, but you want to have a little bit of pull and polarity so that there is that attraction, there is that magnetism, and you can have a little fun with it. Okay. So that's that. Basically, what I wanted to share today is from enlightenment to embodiment. It's from embodiment to enlightenment and bringing it all together. Beautiful, beautiful. So any questions, drop those in the comments, like, comment, subscribe, share, always very, very helpful. And if you are particularly a divine feminine who has become completely repressed, celibate in your marriage, celibate without a marriage, where you're not even touching yourself, or maybe you are, but you just feel off, depleted, you don't feel fulfilled, abundance seems to be an issue, prosperity seems to be an issue, then I have an opportunity for you. It's a free 5-day online master class. Awaken the goddess within. Get that, tapping into sacral chakra. Let's get it back. I have a lot of very unique tools and techniques that I just don't see out there. So that's going to be a link in the description as well. And as well, if you'd like, jump on and we can have, you can have a free call with me as well. Have a beautiful day. I pray that helps.